Do you ever want to improve your life? Feel more fulfilled? Do you ever feel stuck? Like you have big dreams and ideas, but you don't know how to make them happen? Maybe you need a life coach.
What we're doing is helping human beings actually gain control of themselves. Not for us to gain control of you, but for you to gain control, because that's where your power is.
But what happens when that helping hand actually turns out to be something more sinister? For the last 18 months, I've been investigating claims that a pioneering life coaching organisation is actually a cult which controls people.
I don't know who I am anymore, bro. I've absolutely no idea.
I started to feel as though I couldn't think anything unless my mentor said that it's a healthy thing to think.
And when people speak out, well, that's when the trouble really starts.
And they said, if you leave, we have all of your secrets and information.
Everything here is taped. Every conversation you've ever had is taped.
So what's it like to be trolled by your life coach? This is Trolled from BBC Trending. I'm Katrin Nye. In this series, we're investigating how people are targeted and abused on and sometimes off social media, and who's behind the trolling. For this episode, I'm looking into a life coaching organisation called Lighthouse International Group. It's based in the UK, where life coaching has been a booming industry in the last few years. I've been investigating this group for a new podcast called A Very British Cult, and the extreme trolling suffered by former members has turned out to be a huge and utterly devastating part of the story. Lighthouse was set up by a South African businessman called Paul Waugh. It promises to help people realise their dreams and ambitions, but the reality is very different. People who've joined have handed over massive sums of money and are often encouraged to see their friends and family as their enemies. Those who've spoken out have been subjected to online intimidation and even attempts to destroy their careers. Almost every former member I've spoken to describes it as a cult. Many are too scared to speak publicly, but a brave few have.
I'm Jeffrey Lee Jones, and I come from Portsmouth.
In late 2018, Jeff was working as a boat skipper, helping military personnel learn to sail. He was approaching 30, and there was one challenge he'd always wanted to try.
One of my ambitions, which I've had since a kid, was to go to the South Pole. And that dream was born when my dad gave me a book about Ernest Shackleton's voyage.
Jeff realised that in order to achieve his dream of a solo trek to the pole, he'd need more than physical fitness. So he joined an online reading group dedicated to studying a famous self-help book.
I thought it would be a great idea to study this book and learn a few principles of life or principles of effectiveness. I needed some sort of other knowledge or some people that were successful already.
That book group was led by a man called Jay Singh.
Good evening, or good afternoon, or good morning, wherever you are in the world, really.
I thought he was smart, he could speak well, and he was interested in, the same ideas I was interested in.
Jay and Jeff clicked. Even after the reading club finished, they kept on talking.
I think you're very, very teachable. You're very, very open. You'll learn fast and you grow fast.
One day, Jay told Jeff there was something else that could help him fulfill his South Pole dream. Jay said he was part of Lighthouse International, a network of entrepreneurs with a purpose.
We exist to help people to develop themselves so that they can improve themselves and improve the lives of others around them, really.
Lighthouse was led by a man called Paul Waugh, who Jay said was a highly successful entrepreneur who turned his back on the rat race. Paul had a vision to help people become successful by fixing their spiritual well-being.
To do what it takes on a mentorship level to actually build a human being, body, heart, mind, and spirit, and then take the professional on that foundation and really build someone who's focused, who's energized, who feels, who's highly conscious aware.
Jeff was sold. He paid £10,000, more than $12,000, to sign up to a one-year mentoring program. He and Jay now spoke daily, sometimes for hours. Gradually, conversation drifted into Jeff's personal life, relationship troubles, his past, his insecurities. Difficult stuff, but the honesty seemed to help Jeff focus.
It was brilliant. I was motivated, I was inspired, and I started working hard. I was disciplined, and I just loved that feeling. I thought it was great.
A year after joining that initial book club, Jay offered Jeff the chance to get more involved with Lighthouse. Jeff was delighted, even if it did cost him £25,000, more than $30,000. He became something called a Lighthouse Associate Elect, and this meant sitting in on daily calls with as many as 30 members of the group's core team.
And how long would they last?
In the beginning, quite short. Within 6 months, they're 5 to 6 hours.
Morning.
If Paul War came on, it would finish whenever, 12, 1, 2, 3. It went on to about 6 o'clock on one call, 10-hour call.
Lighthouse is obsessed with recording everything. Every mentoring call and meeting is preserved. That's why you've been able to hear all these calls and conversations. And Jeff and others were tasked with transcribing each daily call. All of Paul War's words of wisdom had to be saved and preserved. Erin was also on those marathon calls. She joined Lighthouse after a difficult divorce, seeking to build a new life. Erin's not her real name, and her words spoken by an actor.
It was every day from 7 to 8 in the morning. You need to be listening attentively too, in case you had to give feedback on what was being talked about, until maybe 1 o'clock. Short break, transcribing. These days could just go on forever. And then the evenings as well, 24/7, complete madness.
Jeff and Erin were told Paul War was uniquely enlightened, that they were privileged to be allowed to learn from him. But as they were drawn deeper into Lighthouse, they were left with little time or headspace for anything else. And Lighthouse pushed the idea that the greatest obstacle to people achieving their goals is often their own family and friends.
Of course, all families have difficulties. And Lighthouse would find them. Find them in your journal, or find them in your personal mentoring. Find them in your confessions on these group calls. Other people's families were generally destructive, narcissistic, cynical, hateful, controlling. Didn't want to let their family members go, and would sabotage their potential. And they would sabotage Lighthouse as a whole.
By now, Jeff's girlfriend Dawn and his family were worried about his behaviour. And the more Dawn asked questions, the more Lighthouse said she was a problem, and the more Jeff started to feel like she was too.
And I did hear Paul say, you need to choose between your family and Lighthouse. And at that point, I just lost it and burst in the room and grabbed the phone off Jeff. Jeff was like, get out, get out, get out.
This may all sound a long way from anything that could be described as conventional life coaching, and that's because it is. But it sounds very familiar to cult expert Dr. Alexandra Stein.
I consider Lighthouse a very classic example of a cult. It fits all the criteria that I use.
And what is that?
Well, firstly, cults are started and often continue to be led by a charismatic and authoritarian leader. They start out with the flowers and the flattery, and the abuse comes later. Everything comes from the leader, the beliefs, the orders, how you should be, the way of speaking. But importantly, the structure is heavily isolating, and that goes to, you're going to cut off any relationships that aren't in the cult or aren't useful to the cult.
According to Dr. Stein, financial exploitation is another common trait. Lighthouse constantly needed money. Team members were told they were investing in themselves and that new opportunities would be created as Lighthouse expanded. Eventually, Jeff sold his house, and about a third of the proceeds went to Lighthouse.
The total I invested was £131,000.
Erin also took on more debt to invest in Lighthouse.
What was said repeatedly in my mentoring sessions with Jay was that we would easily, quickly make back our investment within the first year. All associates would be making 100 grand.
But nothing ever seemed to happen. One day Erin started asking where her money had gone. Paul Waugh was furious, a reminder that whenever you hear Erin, her words are spoken by an actor.
Are you mad or are you selfish? I want to know, are you mad or are you selfish? Which one is it?
Must be selfish.
Oh, I think so. Are you mad or narcissistic? Are you mad or psychopathic? Which one are you?
I thought, gosh, perhaps I am really damaged. Perhaps I'm really awful.
Over the previous 2 years, Erin had talked to her Lighthouse mentor about her childhood. She shared with him details of how, as a child, she'd been sexually abused by someone known to her family. But now, those conversations were being used against her.
And they said, if you leave and you turn against us, well, we have all those personal recordings of yours, all of your secrets and information.
Everything here is taped. Every conversation you've ever had is taped. Every journal you've ever written is stored.
I started to become increasingly unwell. I'd even just physically throw up.
If you can't be positive, just shut your mouth. Are you helplessly so stupid?
It was after this particularly bad call, I realised I just needed to leave. I was just like, how can I be a part of this group who treat people that way?
Erin left Lighthouse. She gave an interview to the press about her experiences in the group without giving her name. Soon after, Paul Waugh published a YouTube video in which he called Erin toxic and narcissistic and shared details about her childhood.
On tape, their parents down over and over and over again.
Paul later edited this video to remove Erin's real name, though only after he'd been warned that identifying a victim of sexual abuse without their consent is a criminal offence in the UK. She's not the only one to be targeted. Jo is a teacher in her 50s. She left Lighthouse after asking questions about what had happened to her investment. Jo went online and found a Reddit group, an anonymous forum about Lighthouse. She posted about her time there. She said that if people have doubts, they should ask questions. If they want to leave, then they should. But Lighthouse was watching.
They wrote an email to my head teacher, basically saying that they had concerns about me and my ability to do my job and that I was a threat to children.
But how did that feel?
The fact that it went on for 4 months, it was just horrible.
And this is all basically just because you left?
Because I left and because I asked questions, because I wrote about my experience on Reddit.
Lighthouse also reported Jo to the police. They took no further action, but Lighthouse wrote to her school to say she was under criminal investigation. And then Paul and other Lighthouse members started tweeting at the school. They even threatened to protest outside the gates.
At best, the school authorities need to retrain and reform school teacher and internet terrorist. At worst, if necessary, remove her from the classroom. Let's have a look at the reality of how Joanne got into this mess.
We warn the school. Where is the safeguarding from Joanne?
What is to prevent a psychopath from taking their online work into where they work?
I had to remind myself that this all started because Jo joined a life coaching and mentoring organisation to help her career. Now, those very people were trying to destroy it.
I feel like the harassment is just going to the next level. It's causing me alarm and distress and fear. I don't know what they're going to do next. I'm actually really scared. How far are they going to go?
But Lighthouse say that actually they're the victims, that they're defending themselves from a smear campaign by what they call predatory trolls. Paul Waugh blames former members like Jo and Erin who want undue refunds and toxic relatives and partners of those who are still in the group.
They're so full of hatred and so full of hubris, and they've got away with this abuse so long. A group of people that are trying to kill us and murder us here at Lighthouse, they're trying to blacken us.
Lighthouse says it's helped lots of people overcome the obstacles to their potential, through mentoring, life coaching, counselling and community support. When the BBC approached the organisation for comment, they started targeting people they thought might be involved in our investigation. 7 Lighthouse Twitter accounts were suspended on a single day for hateful conduct. That included one called Parents Against Trolls, the Lighthouse used to respond to negative publicity. By this time, Jeff had left Lighthouse. Complaints by him and other former members led to an official government investigation. After Paul Waugh refused to cooperate, the Secretary of State for Business asked the High Court to shut down Lighthouse International Group Holdings Trading LLP, the group's official company name. A couple of days before a court hearing, and without Jeff's consent, Lighthouse posted deeply personal conversations that Jeff had had with the group. Explicit details of how he tried to take his own life as a teenager, and how he'd struggled to talk to his family about it. They threatened to release more.
It's like being bloody naked in public is a vulnerable feeling. But whatever they come up with, if it hurts me, if it hurts my life, that's a sacrifice I'm willing to make. And somebody's got to stand up for it. And somebody's got to stand up for the people that haven't been able to stand up.
Jeff and Dawn sat in a packed public gallery, surrounded by Lighthouse members, as a judge ordered the business to be shut down in the public interest over a lack of financial transparency. I had repeatedly tried to get Lighthouse to respond to our allegations, so as Paul strode away from court, I seized my opportunity. Hi Paul, how do you feel about being closed down, shut down in the public interest?
It isn't my interest, it's totally my interest. I've been trying to shut it down for a while.
You've been trying to shut it down?
I've been trying to shut it down for a while.
Not the court?
Well, the court too, so we're working together on this, right?
Paul showed no sign of slowing down, and we carried on down a busy London street, followed by 5 BBC camera operators and producers. But we were outnumbered by the 20 or so members of Lighthouse, who were also right behind us in a big group. A court has said you're working against the public interest.
Well, those are the issues we will deal with reputationally after this.
Are you going to carry on?
Yes, we are carrying on.
How do you feel, Paul, about the fact that so many people think you're running a cult?
Well, because we're not running a cult.
Why do so many people think you're running a cult?
Because they don't know what a cult is. They're slurring us, they're smearing us. That's exactly what they do.
Although Lighthouse International has been shut down, there's probably nothing to stop Paul taking on a new name, rebranding and carrying on. Meanwhile, Jeff and the other people you've heard in this episode are rebuilding their lives.
I've got opportunities on the table again, and we will be going to Antarctica in 2024. So not the South Pole goal, but at least closer to it.
That's it for this episode of the BBC Trending podcast. My thanks to producer Ed Main, also to Jamie Bartlett, Natalie Tresswell and Osman Iqbal. Laura Carmichael is our editor. If you want to listen to my 8-part investigation about this story, just search for A Very British Cult wherever you get your podcasts from. Thanks for listening.